Hi everyone, today let's talk about Netflix earnings. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So Netflix crushed it with their members jumping 35% on the ad tier, big numbers there, and they projected revenue between 43 and 44 billion, which was higher than expectations, and you can see the after hours price action, 4.7% up, $32 up, big numbers here for Netflix, big push on the year, and you can see $5.40 versus $5.12 expectation, beat on the top line as well, memberships better than expectations, everything across the board really doing quite well here for Netflix. They also said fourth quarter revenue should be about $4.23. Interesting to see so much fluctuation between quarters, but still very, very good numbers. 5.1 million subscribers added, more than the 4.5 expectation. They did reiterate that they are not going to continue to report subscribers next year. That was put out before, and that did spook markets a little bit, but markets have digested that and does not seem to matter anymore. And then they did talk about some of the upcoming things, Beverly Hills Cop, the new movie there, Officer Black Belt, and then the new Squid Game coming soon. And then of course the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight, and then 2 National Football League games on Christmas Day. And then I did want to mention retail sales here just for a moment. 0.4% September read, better than expectations. Jobless claims also declining, so that continues to look a little bit better, 0.4 for the month, better than the 0.3 forecast. Unemployment claims were at 241, a decline of 19,000 from the 260. Again, so more good economic data, potential for that soft landing thesis. You can see the numbers. Miscellaneous retail stores 4% higher, clothing stores a little bit of a decline, bars and restaurants also a little bit of a decline. Fuel went up a little bit, makes sense with prices falling. General sales here 1.7 compared to a CPI rate of 2.4 for the same period, so that's not super great, but overall good enough to keep markets hovering, if not headed a little bit higher. And then looking at fear and greed, you can see we are still at a 72, just barely higher than the 69. So really in that same region, still in regular greed. Slight step up today. Momentum, strength, and breadth actually getting a little bit of movement on the strength side. That's actually pulling back slightly. Interesting to see that despite markets going a little bit higher, momentum and breadth not moving a lot. Breadth actually swung up a little bit. Put call ratio continuing to trend down into regular greed. And then volatility actually trending down pretty significantly here over the last couple days. You can see that moving average stepping down as well. Safe haven demand, still extreme greed. Junk bonds actually stepping up a little bit in regular greed. And then looking at those earnings, big beat by Netflix, green across the board for the most part, except for Snap-on on the top line. KeyCorp, not a huge company. Most of the big companies all did well. And then looking at tomorrow, P&G, American Express, SLB to wrap up the week. Looking at the economic calendar, you can see CPI in line. Year-over-year number for the headline number was actually a little bit better. Month over month was negative, in line with expectations. The ECB also lowered their interest rate, so that's down at 3.65 now. You can see that here. Interest rate decision 3.4, so lending facility 3.65. Initial jobless claims better than expectations. You can see core retail sales also good there. Philly Fed also pretty good. Month over month numbers 0.4 versus 0.3 like we said. Everything continues to look pretty good there. Retail inventories ex autos not super great, a little bit worse than expectation there. Fed balance sheet, slight decline, about 8 billion. And then looking at the Friday, not a whole lot on there. Atlanta Fed GDP, housing starts, and that'll wrap up the week. Moving over to Max Pain, very little change here. 565 is Max Pain for tomorrow's session. Well below the 582 price. We'll see if that has any impacts as we go into tomorrow's session. You can see the puts are still outnumbering the calls pretty dramatically. Not a ton of calls here. And then the puts, really, really steep numbers. So that should hold up markets at least a little bit. And then as we push into next week, that's when we start to see a little bit more negative numbers. 8 days from now, down another 1.25% from current price. Pretty much in line with what we're seeing for tomorrow's session, 2.63% down. Again, who knows if that's going to have a major impact. It is a third week options expiration, so it should. But Max Pain hasn't been super reliable here over the past couple days, but definitely something to keep in the back of your mind if we start to see some of these levels break, especially headed into the close in tomorrow's session. Moving over to the charts, looking at the SPX, you can see we got very close to that trend, gapped up to that level and then fell, ended up just barely negative on the day for the SPX. Still in the same consolidation at resistance. And then looking at the SPY chart, they're saying just barely positive, 5 cents to the upside, momentum flat, RSI flat. So still in the same region, kind of did what I thought it was going to do, got the slight continuation and then fell right back into the middle of this consolidation. I do think this is a consolidation at this point, similar to the price action we saw here with the big down candle, up, gap up and fall, consolidation, and then eventually we're going to get this kind of sell off here. Really hasn't started quite yet, and you can see from that big down candle, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then on the 7th day, we did get that bigger selling. So right now, still have time, still consolidating. It's up a little bit after hours off that Netflix move. And then looking at it on the short time frames, you can see we pulled back to the 55 EMA after the big move up. I was hoping in the pre-market that we would get a pullback and then get the rally through. Didn't end up doing that. You can see another fade off after the bounce that I was hoping for. Now you can see slightly bearish momentum here on the hourly chart. RSI well below the SMA, so waiting to see if you can get the breakout here. Probably not. My guess is that it'll probably get in this same consolidation, push back and test the support here at the trend. That's 580.80. If that area breaks, then there's a lot of room here to the downside. Let's go ahead and extend out. And then with that trend line here, your next support would be in the 578.71 area. And then remember, the max pain is all the way down at 567. That is all the way back here to these consolidation lows in this area here from the 1 and 2 October time period before we got this most recent push up. So that would be quite dramatic. I don't know if that's going to start tomorrow. Probably not. But for right now, marginally bullish as long as these supports continue to hold. Moving over to the SPY charts here on the 4-hour, you can see we pulled back to the middle of the range after wicking that second ATR band. If we did get a bounce to that next band here, that would be up at 585.95. This is still a bullish structure on the 4-hour chart. I do want to jump down to the 1-hour just for a moment. And you can see we did get a little bit of a flip here. So we were bearish after that big down day on the 15th. 16th, we got the break higher, did get the continuation, and then we broke back to the downside. So this is definitely choppy action on the hourly chart, momentum bearish, not a ton of volume. ATR trailing stop is up there at 585.70. So bearish conditions on the hourly, still bullish here on the 4-hour and the daily. Moving over to the NASDAQ, you can see we didn't get anywhere near that upper trend line. Looking for a push to that level, we didn't end up getting it, and then we ended up falling here. It was still technically positive, 0.08%. We're sitting right on that 9 EMA, momentum bearish, RSI still slightly bearish. So still in the same consolidation, really no change to the thesis from yesterday. Tried to rally up, had absolutely no follow through. And then you can see that same thesis here on the Qs chart on this shorter trend. Did close below the level, and then we got a little bit of a pop after hours with Netflix, so up about $1 after hours, sitting right at the trend line. We did get the big gap, we did get the pullback, but then we couldn't really hold the structure. 9 EMAs there at 491.22. We did close above that by 3 cents. And then looking at it on the hourly chart to give some context, you can see that big gap up, big rally, pulled back like I thought we would. Actually overthrew the trend line a little bit more, hit the 21 EMA and my level at 492. After touching that, we got the bounce. I was hoping for the follow through here back up to this level that we saw back on the Monday and Tuesday sessions, but there was absolutely no follow through. There's just not a lot of buyers in markets. And we've seen this kind of across the board. We've seen a bunch of attempted breakouts and then they get continuously sold. So right now we're in this consolidation. Still holding this level, still holding some of these longer term EMAs. Got the 144 there at 491.18. All the other EMAs are to the upside. So you have resistance overhead on the hourly chart. Choppy session. We did chop through them a few times, but right now that's resistance with the 144 as support, chopping on my level 492. So definitely sideways consolidation. We've been here since Wednesday. But I do eventually think this is still going to break to the downside. Again, no change to the thesis unless we start to see something change this momentum and get that big continuation back up to that 498.44 level. Moving over to the NASDAQ on the Tasty charts here, you still have support at the 55 EMA on the 4-hour chart. That is at 490.23, almost touched that level a few times. A little bit more volume in here. Again, big up, doji, big down, confirmation down, close below the 2 previous bodies. So again, waiting to see if this has a little bit more in it. Still bearish conditions, so you have bearish conditions on the 4-hour. Still technically slightly bullish here on the hourly. I wouldn't put a ton of weight behind that because this is sideways consolidation. But for right now, we pulled back to this ATR trailing stop. That was at 491.20. That's what I would be watching here on the hourly. As long as that holds, we're in good shape. Want to see it get above this consolidation of EMAs and SMAs. Price target in the short term would be at 494.50. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell did break out yesterday, and then today we pulled back, tested that level, closed above it, 226.02. So structurally still intact, breakout, retest, looking for that continuation to 229.18. Momentum bullish, RSI still bullish, and then looking at the Dow, gap up in doji, the Dow continues to remain very, very strong. Hit the trend again, momentum bullish, RSI bullish, decent volume there. Tomorrow's definitely going to be interesting. If we get the gap down and fall, that would be very concerning. If we get the continuation up to this next level here, that would be around 437.50. Moving over to the Mag 7, this has continued to stay flat since 19 September. Markets hovering, Mag 7 not carrying us higher, and you can see we actually closed below the VWAP, 21 EMA, 9 EMA. So your current support is down at 273.41. The closing price was 276.52. Again, below all of those dynamic supports, momentum bearish, RSI still bearish. I think this is going to roll down. Once this starts to break down, that's going to take markets with it. At least look for the gap fill here. The open of that candle was 268.99. So from current price back to that level, that's about 2 3/4% lower. I do think that's going to happen eventually, and then we'll see what happens from there. That's also going to be very close to your 55 EMA, down at 267.03. Right now, still in the same region we've been in. Moving over to Netflix and Broadcom, some of the stocks I talked about in this morning's video. We were watching support here at 693.33, broke that, touched the 55 EMA, found support at the 55. That was the support once this broke, and then you can see after hours we're all the way up at 722, back basically to the all-time high. The high is 736 flat, so that would be your price target in tomorrow's session. Momentum and RSI are both bearish, but you can get a big switch in conditions once you get those strong earnings. So we'll see how that plays. We were hoping for support here, found it a little bit lower. Not that I would have been entering here. This didn't look super great, but with that earnings, it looks much, much better. And jumping to the 4-hour chart, just so you can see what that earnings looked like. Big candle back into this area here, looking for a push to that 731.60 area. I think it's going to do it. Definitely a good result for Netflix. And then looking at Broadcom, another one of those stocks I was looking for. You had the gap up, and you did get the rally, and we did hit the price target at 184.81, but there was really just no follow through here. Again, fitting with that same thesis that we've been seeing across markets. You can see the rally up, consolidation into the open. Once we got the open, got the rally, big candle, the high of day was up in that 185.30 area. That would have been your take profit on that first move. And then if you did try to buy this breakout here, you would have been stopped out basically immediately. And then we pulled back to this same consolidation from here. Still looks okay. Could hold this support in here, 21 EMA at 181.06. Still want to see a break of that 184 level and hold some of that breakout. It's just concerning to me to see how many of these stocks have rallied up to resistance just to reject immediately. We've seen it on many, many stocks, and this is just another iteration of that. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, up 0.16 and 0.14 respectively. Apple, same region, retesting support and held, which is good. But again, we could not hold really any of those gains. Want to see this push back up to 237.23. We called for that back here on Tuesday. We did get the touch basically immediately, and then we gave all of that back and then fell a little bit more. So support right now sitting at 231.96. If this zone holds, look for another push back up to that level, which to be fair is about $5 higher. So there's something in it, at least in the short term. And then looking at Microsoft, again, same thesis, gap up, hit resistance, sold off. Held some of those gains, but not much in this same consolidation that we've been seeing. At this point, it is a wedge. I still think this is going to break to the downside, but it is taking forever to do it. We got here back on 2 October, and we are still here on 17 October. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA, you can see Tesla was slightly negative in the same region it's been in. This is kind of dead for me right now. It hasn't moved a lot, really no catalysts. Huge selling here, big volume. Momentum starting to swing up a little bit. Maybe there's something in it. Definitely better places to put your money, at least for now. Might actually take this one out of rotation unless it starts to do something. Otherwise, looking at NVIDIA, finally hit our price target. We had the breakout here on the 8th. Might have got stopped out here on the 15th, depending on how you're trading it. And then we ended up catching that move up here to 140.76. hit the all-time high, sold off a little bit, another iteration of a gap up rally, price target, resistance, and then some selling. Still positive on the day, momentum kind of flat, fading, RSI still technically bullish. Moving over to Amazon and Google, Amazon hitting resistance and selling once again. Again, you're seeing that thesis over and over, 188.61, touched the level, rejected from there. Momentum, not doing much of anything. RSI still technically bullish, holding above the SMA, so that's something to watch. It's right on top of that 21 EMA. That's your support at 187.59. Still want to see it break here and then push to the next level, 191.64. We'll see how it plays. Right now, it's at resistance, kind of in this consolidation. We've been here for a while, but we've had a couple of swings, pretty dramatic ones. But really, the more interesting story for me is Alphabet. Look at that terrible candle, 1.34% down, broke the trend, broke the 9, broke the VWAP there, momentum bearish, RSI back to bearish, big breakdown. Seems like Alphabet has some more to the downside in my opinion. Short-term target would be the 200 SMA, 161.85, 161.59 is my level, and then you got some trend support below that, down in the 160.70 area. I do think this is going to follow through here now that that trend line has broken once again. You can see once it broke here, we pushed right to the 200. I think this is going to be another iteration of that, and then we'll see what happens here. If it breaks down, then you could very quickly see a push back into the 150s. If it holds the level, then maybe we see something different, but right now, this is a high, lower high to me, big sell-off, and I think there's more to the downside. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, both of these pulling back pretty dramatically. Right to the trend support here for staples, big down candle, 0.45. After hitting resistance 3 days in a row at 82.53, this is now a high, lower high setup, probably going to sell some more. Momentum, slightly bullish. It is at support. If it holds, maybe we see another push back up to this level, and then if it breaks, 83.43. But again, still looks like a high, lower high to me. Similarly here on discretionaries, high, lower high, not as clean of a setup. And you can see we actually just barely filled that gap. 199.58 was the high of day. The close from this candle was 199.56. So we just barely touched it and then found some selling, filled the gap, selling a little bit after hours. RSI looks terrible. Retest. If it's going to sell, it's going to do it here. So some things to watch for. Again, consolidation, but definitely some bearish indicators to look for. Moving over to oil and semis, you got oil with a big move up, 0.9, broke my level, 135.07. Seems like we're holding this support here. 21 EMA, resistance, 135.71. Closed just barely below it. I think this is it here, so I think we're going to get a little bit of a push. 9 EMA, first target, 137.72. Then you're looking for the gap fill. The close there was 138.79, so I think we're going to hold this higher low here. Got the breakout from this level. Want to see this get some continuation. Oil looks pretty good going into tomorrow's session. And then looking at semis, again, very similar story to everything we've been talking about. My level was 256.26, and the high of day missed it just barely, 256.17, so missed it by 9 cents. And then you can see we rejected pretty strongly, more selling. Still got the gap up, still got more selling, momentum bearish, RSI bearish, just another iteration of finding clear resistance and some selling coming in. Moving over to RIOT and Marathon, these continue to look pretty good. RIOT hitting that target at the 144 EMA, 934, touched that level, overthrew it a little bit. Similarly here on Mara, it did end up negative on the day. After hours, it's up a little bit, but hit the target there, 144 EMA at 1842. Next level, 1878. We'll see if it pushes to the 200 there at 1938. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, almost overbought here on RIOT. It's been a run. You can see this bottomed out around here, around the 6th area, and since then we've rallied about 50%, so pretty strong move. I think there's a little bit more in these. Need to see some of these areas break. Again, 144 EMA is there at 934. Moving over to Breadth just for a moment here. 20-day Breadth still hovering at the level 68.14. Did technically close below it. Momentum still bullish. RSI still neutral. But the bigger story again is the 55 EMA. So we got the breakdown, retest yesterday, continuation lower. Momentum back to bearish. RSI right at the SMA. This is continuing to trend lower. Seems like the 50 is starting to lead to the downside. Once we start to see that 20 go with it, that's going to be quite bearish. And I would guess that's going to happen fairly soon. It can take a while. You can see here we got here in 16 September and then the breakdown breakdown took until 2 October to fall. So it can take a while, but remember, this is the lower high setup on equities. It is flat here on 20-day. Same here on 50, high, lower high. Think this is going to go a little bit lower here soon. Moving over to the dollar, what a move. This has been crazy move here. You can see since 30 September, we've basically gone straight up with just 2 consolidation days. Now we've pushed to the 200 SMA at 103.77, touched that level, and the 144 EMA, broke my 103.64 level. Absolutely massive on the dollar. My guess is that we're probably going to see a bull flag set up here. This will start to consolidate and grind lower. And then once we get that breakout, then we'll probably see a bigger move once again. It is overbought. We're at a 74 on the RSI at clear resistance. So that could be interesting if this sells a little bit. Maybe equities kind of hover. But right now, the dollar just looks super aggressive, going straight up here for basically 3 weeks. Moving over to bonds. What a head fake here on bonds. So you can see I was looking for a test of the 21 EMA. J&K couldn't quite get there and then immediately started selling off. So this looks like a breakdown, retest, breakdown now. Momentum, not going with it yet. RSI breaking down. You can see it's back below the SMA, so probably a little bit more to the downside. If it double bottoms here at 96.51, that could be interesting. Maybe that's kind of a short-term bottom. If it breaks here, there is plenty of room to the downside, especially with this kind of left shoulder, head, right shoulder forming now. And then looking at TLT, gap down and fall, super aggressive there. Support is still 92.82. Again, I still like this medium term. And if you want to call this a left shoulder, head, right shoulder here, we should be culminating pretty soon. Momentum still gaining some strength. RSI much, much higher here, so that's interesting. Let's go ahead and look at that a little closer. You can see on RSI, deep low, much higher there on the RSI with the current level at 34.18. And then looking at price, pretty similar on price, especially if you go back to the 10th, we're basically at that same level. RSI is at 28.3 there. Current RSI is a 34. So we're holding a higher low on strength, even with even price. So we're having a little bit of divergence, means this is starting to form a bottom, in my opinion. Then we'll see what happens from here. I still like this medium term. Moving over to the VIX, you can see it did fall to that 55 EMA. That was at 1897. This continues to sell like we thought that it would. Markets didn't really go higher. The VIX is just starting to fall a little bit more. 21 is your next support at 1864. We'll see if this zone holds or not. Maybe this falls to this support down here, 1778. Momentum right now, bearish. RSI still bearish, but still holding some zones of support. Really no change to the thesis since back here on the 8th of October. Moving over to my accounts, I was down just a smidgen, like 10 bucks on the day, nothing crazy. I did get chopped up a little bit on the Qs. I wanted to hold those gains a little bit better. I did end up putting the shares back on. You can see I did lose money on that. I had calls against it, so that helped. I ended up rolling those down here to $4.93 for $1.50 on both of those. Price right now, it's below it at 50 cents. Want to see that rally. I'd like to see those shares go. I don't really want to sit in the shares. I did like the Netflix result, so hopefully we can get just a little bit of a rally. But again, the concern is that we just can't seem to hold any of those gains. If we get them, they're short-lived, and then we see that sell-off. So something to consider there. I also left on some puts here at 489 and 490, so I'm actually a little bit more bullish than I wanted to be. But again, Netflix result was good. We did see some falling. We did see some supports hold. So maybe we can get a slight continuation. Definitely not looking long-term with these positions. And then the Russell, no change to the thesis. No change to the positions, still 224 for $3 credit. And the credit that came in covered the losses on the day, so very minimal change to my accounts. Let me know down in the comments section what you thought of Netflix earnings or retail sales or any of the charts. Do you think that the thesis around not being able to hold gains is going to hold water over the next couple days? Or are we eventually going to get that final breakout to the upside? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.